Welcome to the first meeting of Prevent T2, the proven program to prevent or delay type 2 diabetes in those at high risk. It was developed by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. We'll start by introducing ourselves. My name is Sharon. I'm so excited to be working with you over this next year. I am a registered dietitian with Pinoleville. I have worked in the field of nutrition for over 20 plus years, specifically with diabetes and weight loss. So this is something I'm pretty familiar with. We started working with this program in September of 2020. And so we're on the roll now. Then I'd like to introduce you to Angie.
Hi everyone, I'm Angie and I'm a community health representative for the Pinoleville Pomo Nation. I also work in the garden part of the time, so I'm excited to also be part of your health journey here at Pinoleville.
Great. Okay, so a little background about Prevent T2. T2 stands for type 2 diabetes. As I mentioned earlier, this was developed by the Center for Disease Control, as well in the future called CDC. It's an evidence-based program, meaning that it's been tested to work. It focuses on healthy eating and physical activity, and it can cut the risk of developing type 2 diabetes by 58%, and 71% for people over 60 years old.
So to start off this session, we want to ask you some of these important questions about why did you join this program, or rather, what is your nugget? So if you're thinking about your reasons for joining this program, some of the common ones might be to get more active, to lose weight, to prevent type 2 diabetes, or maybe to support a friend or a family member that is struggling with diabetes or are at risk of diabetes. And you know, you might have a completely different one. Maybe it's you want to be able to play with your grandkids, you want to be able to get on the ground with them, or you want to take less medication, you want to age better. And so whatever it might be for you, it's important to identify what is that nugget for you, because that will really help drive your motivation to participate in this program and to really sustain some of these lifestyle changes that we'll talk about throughout this program. And another piece to this is, you know, this group is really important in this, that we are able to provide support for each other. So we're excited to all be together in person and to provide some of that support, but virtually here we can also do that. And so for today's lesson, we will be focusing on this intro to the program. So what are the program's goals? What is the structure? What does this year-long program look like? And then we'll dive into some of the basics of type 2 diabetes and kind of get into the nitty-gritty of what does this mean for your health. And then we'll talk about your 6-month goals and how to set some of these goals for yourself and what those might look like. And then we're going to introduce this idea of an action plan. And so you'll get to make a weekly action plan and set some goals for yourself for the week, and then create some steps to achieve that. All right, and I'll pass it off to Sharon for the program overview.
All right. So the program overview, let's start with an overview. Prevent T2 is, we've already said, designed for people with pre-diabetes. It's also for people at high risk for type 2 diabetes and want to lower their risk. So what we're going to do is start with, you've got your participant guide, and I want you to look at this chapter and go to page 2. It's called Pre-Diabetes. There it is. And we're going to talk about the goals of this program. So I'm going to read this through. Pre-diabetes means that your blood sugar is higher than normal, but it's not high enough for type 2 diabetes. More than 1 in 3 Americans has prediabetes. 9 out of 10 people with prediabetes don't even know they have it. That's a pretty startling statistic. So we're really glad you're here. If you have prediabetes, you are more likely to get diabetes, heart disease, and stroke. The good news is that losing weight and being active can cut your risk of type 2 diabetes in half. And this is probably the most important thing of why you join this program is it's not an inevitable course of you're going to get diabetes or heart disease or stroke. Just by making lifestyle changes a little at a time, you can totally change course and really severely reduce your risk of developing any of these conditions. Where am I on now? All right, so then let's just kind of, like I said, it's a year-long program. So it's designed for people with prediabetes, as we mentioned, or people at high risk for type 2 diabetes and want to lower their risk. So we basically break it into 2 6-month sessions. By the end of the first 6 months, your goal is to lose at least 5 to 7% of your starting weight. And we're going to walk you through how we set that up. And by the end of the first 6 months, you want to get at least 150 minutes of physical activity each week. By the end of the second 6 months, your goal is to keep off the weight you've lost and keep working toward your goal weight if you haven't reached it. And you can even lose more weight if you wish. And you lastly want to keep getting at least 150 minutes of activity each week.
So these two pieces are a big focus of the program, and that's because losing weight can, you see this list here, it can prevent or delay type 2 diabetes, ease sleep problems, arthritis, and depression, lower your blood pressure and cholesterol level, and make you feel better about yourself. And then getting more active can prevent or delay type 2 diabetes, give you more energy, help you sleep better, improve your memory, balance, and flexibility, lift your mood, lower your blood pressure and cholesterol, lower your risk of heart attack and stroke, lower your stress level, and strengthen your muscles and bones. So those are great lists, right? And great reasons for us to pursue these goals. But a piece to point out is with the physical activity, they emphasize that it should be at a moderate pace. So what do you think some moderate activities might be? So that could be biking, brisk walking, or dancing. And we'll get more into this in another session, but just to give you an idea, those are some potential options when you're thinking about moderate activity. Okay, so that's a little bit of an intro, but we also want to go back to the structure of this program. So some of the big pieces to highlight are, yes, this is a year-long program. There are 26 lessons to cover. So this is what we're offering you. We have the first 6-month period where we will meet with you weekly, and we will accomplish the first 16 lessons. And then the second 6 months, we transition to meeting once monthly. And that will be the last 6 lessons there with some optional, I think 4 more optional lessons that we could potentially fit in if the group desires. And so with that, so that's what we give you, but you know, this is a give and a take. So what we need from you is weekly data collection. So with every session, we will take your weight at the beginning of each session. And then once we reach our lesson on physical activity minutes, we will start collecting that piece of data as well. And those physical activity minutes should be for a weekly period from so the week prior to the date of the session or the makeup session if you're doing a makeup session. And then Also, in certain lessons, we'll introduce food logs and fitness logs, and those are things that we might ask you to give us as well. And so I mentioned makeup sessions. We are able to offer makeup sessions. We know that scheduling can be tricky. Maybe you can't attend, the in-person or the virtual session, so you require an extra one. You are allowed to do one makeup session per week. And then to complete your makeup sessions, you need to complete makeup sessions for lesson 1 through 16 within those first 6 months. And then, as I mentioned, your weight and physical activity minutes will be collected on the day of the session, whether it's your core session or if it's a makeup session. And then with the makeup sessions, you are required to have live interaction with your lifestyle coach. So for example, this is a recording. We do require that you call your lifestyle coach afterwards to have a live interaction and check in about the lesson.
All right, and to continue on about just the program overview, at the start of it, each session, you'll spend some one-on-one time with us. You'll write down your weight just as you did today. If it's a live session, we'll come in and we have a scale, and then we keep a binder where we will record your weight. If it is a makeup session, you will weigh yourself, and then when you come, you can either text it to one of us or let us know. And then starting in a couple of weeks, you'll also show us your fitness log. That's where you'll write down your minutes of activity each week. And then about a couple of weeks after that, we'll introduce a food log. And you think, wow, that's a lot of logging and a lot of weight tracking and all that. But this is, really what really works. We wouldn't ask you to do it unless we know that this is really what the tried and true way is to lose weight and keep it off. So it's kind of a form of personal accountability. And it really doesn't take as much time as a lot of people think. We will keep that record of your weight and your activity minutes, and so will you. And this will help us track your progress as well as help you track your progress. Then we'll move on to group time. We'll talk about how to eat well, how to be active, how to change your lifestyle. We've got all kinds of great topics we'll talk about in each of the lessons. It can be challenging to change your lifestyle, but we'll work through those challenges together. You'll also have the chance to share your thoughts, feelings, and experiences, but only if you want to. And one thing just to keep in mind is, this is a behavior change doesn't happen overnight. I like to think of it as like a big cruiser ship out on the ocean. It doesn't just switch course automatically. You have to kind of make small little changes and then eventually it starts going in a different direction. It's the same with behavior change, any kind of behavior change. And the more you are invested in the program, the better success you will have. All right, now we're going to go into the basics of type 2 diabetes. So we're going to show a couple pictures first because I think pictures are really helpful in understanding things sometimes more than words. And so what we have here are two pictures. The one on the left shows kind of a healthy look at what happens when we eat food and how it gets into our body. And the one on the right shows someone with type 2 diabetes. So let's look at the picture on the left first, the healthy one. So if you see in the upper left corner, you see that kind of pinkish thing with the loop on it, and that's a stomach. So that pipe coming from the top is basically your esophagus, your throat. And so all the food we eat basically turns into something called glucose, whether it's butter or bread or chicken, it's all eventually going to turn into glucose. And then that glucose, they're showing this by these little purple balls there, that gets absorbed from the small intestine, and that purple arrow is showing that it goes into the bloodstream. So that big red one in the middle is like a blood vessel. And so you get all that glucose going into the bloodstream. Now on the bottom left there, you see something that looks like kind of a bumpy banana, and that is the pancreas. And the pancreas lives behind your stomach. The reason they're very close together. When the pancreas senses that there's glucose in the blood, it will secrete a hormone called insulin. And insulin's job is to go into the bloodstream to escort that glucose out. So if you look on the top right, you see a big, funny looking red thing, and that is a drawing of a liver. And that's one of the places that the insulin will escort the glucose to. So as you can see, the dots, the purple dots and the green dots are all going towards the liver. The other place it will take it to is in the bottom right, which is a muscle. So it'll take it to your muscles. And it's either stored there or it's used there. Another place it takes us to is your brain. That's what makes us think. If we don't have that glucose, we're not able to think. So look also on this slide at this picture at the very bottom where it says normal level of glucose in the blood, and you see 5 little purple balls coming out the bottom. So that's basically your body likes a certain amount of glucose in the blood. It doesn't want it too high and it doesn't want it too low. And so if it's too high, which happens after we eat, the insulin's job is to bring it down to a normal level. And so that's how you have that normal level of glucose in the blood. Now let's look at the slide on the right. It says type 2 diabetes. Over on the left, you see the stomach, and it's pretty much the same there. You're eating the food, and then the glucose, the same number of little purple balls, which is the glucose, gets into the bloodstream. And then over with the pancreas on the bottom left, you're seeing the insulin is secreted a similar amount. So as a healthy person. And here's where it changes. If you look on the top right, where you see that liver, the insulin is doing its job, but there's only a few glucose that are going out. That means the organ, meaning the liver, is unresponsive. It's just not taking it in. The insulin is trying its best to bring the glucose in, but it's just not taking it in. The other thing the insulin can be having a problem with is pulling it out of the blood vessel. So one of two things can be happening. The insulin can't pull it out of the blood vessel, or it's having problems bringing it into different areas. And you can see this also with the muscle. So you can imagine what happens with this is, you guessed it, all that glucose can't move out of the bloodstream. So if you look at the bottom there, at the bottom of the blood vessel, the number of those little purple balls, there's an increased level of glucose in the blood compared to the healthy side. There's a lot more. And this is what type 2 diabetes is on the, the vascular level or blood vessels. So the next thing is, well, so what's the problem? I have all this sugar in my blood. Is that a big problem? So on this next slide, we're going to look at what happens when we do have too much glucose in all the different areas of the body. So blood vessels, if you have glucose in it, it makes the lining of those blood vessels, usually they're very pliable, almost like a hose or something. But when there's a lot of glucose in the blood vessels, they can get brittle and they can break, and so blood can't get through very well. And you start seeing problems, usually start in the smallest blood vessels in our body, which are usually in places like our legs and our feet, in our eyes, in our kidneys, because there's very tiny blood vessels. So one thing you see is people who have diabetes will typically have problems with vision. They will also have a condition that's called neuropathy, where they lose kind of nerve endings at their feet and fingers. And then eventually you see the kidneys being affected because the micro vessels that go into the kidneys make the kidneys not function as well. And this eventually can lead to end-stage renal disease and dialysis. And as you can see from this diagram, there's a lot of other areas that diabetes can affect. So this brings a really important point here. You are at a point where making changes can totally offset these things from happening, can totally prevent it, and it's all by lifestyle change. And I'm sure you know somebody who has any issues with this from diabetes, and just know that it's not a one-way street. You can totally change the course, and we're so glad you're here. We'll be able to walk you through how you can do that.
So Sharon, here's the participant guide too. I know you just covered a lot, but I'm not sure if there's more here.
Right, and so this what I talked about in the picture was, this is basically explains that you have all the information here, and I'll go through this. When you eat, your body breaks down food into glucose, which we talked about. I said is a type of sugar, those purple dots. In people with type 2 diabetes, a hormone called insulin that helps the sugar leave the blood and enter the cells, and that gives the cells energy. It's like an escort. But when you have type 2 diabetes, the body doesn't make or use insulin well. So the sugar builds up in the blood instead of going into the cells, and the cells don't get enough energy. So what type 2 diabetes can harm is your heart and blood vessels, which can lead to heart attack and strokes. It can harm your nerves, the kidneys, the eyes, the feet, the gums, the skin. And you are more likely to get type 2 diabetes if you are too heavy, which is why weight loss is a big part of this program. If you spend a lot of time sitting or lying down, which physical activity you see is a big part of this program. If you have a parent or a sibling with type 2 diabetes, if you're African American, Hispanic, Native American, or Asian American, you are 45 or older. That's because people tend to be less active and gain weight as they age, but type 2 diabetes is on the rise among young people as well. Also having diabetes while you're pregnant, also called gestational diabetes. So it doesn't mean you're going to get it, but you're just, you've got to be very, really make some lifestyle changes if you have some of these pre-existing situations.
Right, so like Sharon said, we can't necessarily control all of these factors, right? But something that you can control is your weight and how active you are. So we'll move on to talking about your next steps, and we'll turn to page 5 here and focus on your 6-month goals. So again, what is your 6-month activity goal? That goal is to get at least 150 minutes of activity at a moderate pace each week. And so let's talk about those 150 minutes. What could that look like? Maybe that could be 5 days you go on a walk, and that's a 30-minute walk. Or maybe you split up those 30 minutes and you do 2 15-minute walks. Or maybe you split it up into 3 10-minute walks. And so I know quite often if you're working, you might be entitled to 2 15-minute breaks during your day, right? So maybe one of those or even 2 of those could be a walk. Just get out in the parking lot and walk for 10, 15 minutes. And slowly those minutes will add up to your 150 minutes that you're trying to get per week. And then again, before setting your 6-month weight goal, you do need to decide what percentage of your starting weight you want to lose. So again, the goal of this program is to lose at least 5 to 7% of your starting weight over the next 6 months. And so here in the participant guide, which we're showing on the screen, and you should have a copy of as well, we have this chart that we'll come back to and have you fill out. But first I'll show you, we have weight loss by the numbers. And here on page 6 is just kind of instructions for how to read what is on pages 7 and 8 here. So these charts, you'll be able to find your weight in the blue columns, and then based on the percentage of weight you decide to lose, you'll just carry it across and figure out how many pounds that would be based on your weight in the blue column. And again, here on page 6, it walks you through how to do that. So if we're thinking about this and using this chart, so let's say you weigh 200 pounds. So let's find that on the chart. Here we are, it's 200. So if your goal is to lose 5% of your weight, how many pounds would you need to lose? So here the chart says 10 pounds. Whereas if it was 7% of your weight that you want to lose, it would be 14 pounds. So again, either if you have seen us in person and checked in, or if you have a scale with you at home, you'll be able to weigh yourself and determine your starting weight today. And you can write that here in this blue row. And then again, decide what percentage of your weight you want to lose over the next 6 months. What will you commit to for this program? It can, of course, always be more. But for this program, they give us the range of 5 to 7%. And so you can decide that and write that here. And then you can either do the math or use the chart below, and you'll be able to write in how many pounds that means you're committing to lose. And then you'll be able to subtract that from your starting weight to determine your goal weight.
Great.
And so, sorry, Sharon, one more thing. An important piece with this that we did want to emphasize is that, so this is a 6-month goal, but being able to determine that big chunk of weight that you're going to lose, it's easier to kind of wrap your mind around that if you divide that into your monthly goal. So once you determine this number here, divide that by 6 to determine how much weight you'll lose per month. And then that can help you kind of stay on track. And we have a slide here that I know Sharon was excited to show you. Here we go.
This is creating a graph of your weight can be really helpful, because when you come in to see us, we'll take your weight and put your weight in a binder, but we're not really, keeping track of the long range. So if you think of this as like you're going on a journey and you're starting one place and you know where you want to go, it's important to see as you're going along if you are on track. So what this graph is, just as an example, you see on the vertical scale, it goes from 162 to 171, and you can put whatever numbers you want in something like this. And you put that red line, red line starts at the current weight, which for this person is just a tad under 170. And then at the end of a certain time period, for our case, it's 6 months. And then so on that horizontal axis, you would do march away 6 months and then put what that end weight is that Angie showed you how to calculate. And you draw the line. And then as the weeks go on, the blue line is, in this example, just somebody's progress. And it's important to see this because I think people get thinking that their weight loss is going to be a straight line, and it never is. It goes down and then it goes up, and it kind of stays close to the goal. It moves all over the place. But the main thing is you're seeing the trend. In this particular case, it is really following that red line. What I like about keeping a graph, and this is something you can create, and we can show you how to do that, or you can find templates on the internet. And putting something like this up in your bathroom above your scale, and you're marking your weight regularly, I would say once a week is plenty. But it's helping you see how you're doing compared to your goal. And that way, if you are not doing well according to your goal, you can reach out to us and we can help you come up with some ideas and look at what might be contributing to that. Or if you're maybe losing weight too quickly, we'd like to talk to you about that too. So I think of we don't ask for this, but this is more just for your own personal accountability. And you can reach out to us if you find that you're not on track with your weight loss goals. Now we'll go on to your plan for success. So to help you succeed in this program, you will make a new action plan at each session. So you also have an action plan journal, and you will either receive a hard copy of it, or we will have sent you a digital one. And it's a 3-page document, and this is page 2. And action plans are basically designed to help you come up with specific behavior changes you want to work on for that particular week. So we're talking baby steps. We're not talking, okay, I'm going to shoot for the moon and do everything all in the first week and then I'll be fine. What research has shown us, if a participant chooses the goals they want to work on, and we'll talk about how you can make it so they are successful, there's a better chance of long-term success when you're kind of chipping away at these little behavior changes a little at a time. So some tips for making an action plan is that you want to be, there's 6 things. You want your action plan to be realistic. You want to plan actions that are realistic for you. So for example, let's say you're a mom with 3 kids and your action plan is to spend 30 minutes a day in the afternoon going for a walk. And your kids are coming home from school then. Well, that's probably not a realistic action plan. Making it doable. Plan for small changes. Over time, these changes will add up. So in Angie's example with walking, you can break it, instead of doing a 30-minute walk, maybe you're not walking at all now. So maybe your goal right now is just to do 5 minutes every day. That's okay. The 150 minutes is, shooting for the moon. That's the long-term goal. So it's just those baby steps. So that's doable. Making it specific. Putting the more detail you can put in the action plan, the better chance of success. And this means things like what you will do, like go for a walk, where you will do it, in the parking lot, when you will do it, during my break at work, how long you will do it. I'm going to start with 5 minutes and I'm going to build up to 30 minutes. Those kind of things. So really specific detail will help you get there, be much more successful. Also being flexible. You want to review your action plan often and look for ways to cope with challenges. If your action plan isn't working for you, revise it. So for example, you might have a plan to go walking and it's pouring rain. Well, what are you going to do? You can go out, you can go go on YouTube and find something to do. You can do it another time during the day. You can do something indoors. So kind of look at some options like that. Focusing on behaviors. For instance, you can control how many pounds you lose by focusing on your actions, such as what you eat and how active you are. So not thinking about, oh my God, I haven't lost any weight, but just more like what you're doing that's different, that's kind of moving that ship gradually. And this last one, I think, is probably the most important, is to make it enjoyable. It's got to be fun. Change doesn't have to be painful. You want to find activities and healthy foods that you enjoy and find ways to make it enjoyable. Might mean like a friend to walk with, so you have someone to talk to, or listening to some really good music while you're working out. But anything you can do to make you want to go back and do it, whether that's with your eating or with your activity, is going to be a better chance of success. And then next week, we're going to work this through with a partner. When you come in, we're going to talk about the action plan, and then we'll share that with the group. But this is what the action plan looks like, and you'll have this. What you could do is make a bunch of copies of this. We can always give you a copy. But there's, in this one, we have 3 actions, and then you can say what you will do, where you will do it, all these things we talked about. And what you'll find out is when you come back the next week, if something wasn't done or you weren't able to do it, go back to it and ask yourself, was it specific enough? Was it realistic? Was it doable? Was I being flexible? So think about all those things and then kind of rework it. And pretty soon you're going to get really good at these action plans, so they're really geared towards your success.
Okay, so between now and the next time, like Sharon said, keep track of this action plan, check off what you've completed, or make notes about what you might need to change. But otherwise, we've come to the end of this session, and we have our last slide here just as a reminder. To complete this session, here's our list that you have to follow through with. So watching this recording, work on your action plan, carry it out. We gave you the idea of an optional weight graph or some way to track your progress there. And then again, because this is a recording, you need to give us a call or set up a time to meet with us to review this session and to collect your data and just to go over everything from the session and have that just personal live interaction with your lifestyle coach. And then you will have completed this session. So that's hopefully some simple steps for you there. But otherwise, like I said, we've come to the end of this session where we talked about the program's goals and the structure and the basics of type 2 diabetes, how to set your goals and write action plans, and a bunch of exciting stuff. So we look forward to the next session, which is getting active to prevent T2. And we'll talk a little bit more about those 150 minutes that you guys have a goal to achieve. So that's it. Thanks for attending this session.